Hello, George.
Good
How's it
day,
going?
George. How is it going? I think it's going pretty well. We're here to do a webinar, which is great.
We are, and the good news about this webinar is that we've done it before. So apologies to everybody who had to suffer through it the first time when we kind of knew what we're doing. But great news for everybody here today because we actually kind of know what we're talking about. So at least I think so.
We always know what we're talking about, but actually, for anyone who might be coming back to look at this webinar for a second time, we actually have some updates.
People do that?
Some people do. I see some names in chat, people saying hi that I've seen before.
Have you ever watched a webinar twice, George?
No, I haven't. But you know, we have some updates that I think we're going to share as part of this. So if people are tuning in for a second time, I think that will be of interest to them. But we're just seeing the numbers kind of tick up here a little bit. So I think we'll just kind of hang out for a minute or so. Lots of people saying hi in chat, which is great. Anders and Nadia and Tim Trott saying hi. Tim, you guys are on yet another platform. Tim, do you mean Crowdcast? Because this is where we've been doing webinars for over a year now.
Well, he's probably talking about YouTube, which is where we spend a
that's true.
lot of time
That's
as well. But Crowdcast has been a great boon for us for webinars. It's got all these great features for us to interact with you. So don't be shy, everybody.
And yes, please follow us on Crowdcast. And if anyone has any interest in knowing more about Crowdcast, we actually did a show with the founder of Crowdcast quite some time ago. So I would recommend going back and checking that out, where we talk about all things about this platform and why we like it. So check that out. I see Eric saying hello and a few other people saying hello. This is great. Looks like a few more people coming in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on with the show. Today we're here to talk about Epiphan Cloud and multi-device management. And I'm sure everybody who is on the call knows a little bit about Epiphan Cloud. And George, maybe you can give them some tips on how to make the most out of this webinar stuff.
Yeah. So as George mentioned, we're going to go through all the things about cloud, but to interact with you guys, like as always, feel free to chime in chat. However, with a webinar and in Crowdcast in particular, it's much easier to ask questions of us by using the Q&A panel, which you'll find in Crowdcast, as well as we'll have a number of polls that are published throughout today's webinar, and you can check those out on the polls panel. The best part about the Q&A panel is that there's also an upvote tool as part of it. So Matt has one question in there already. As people ask more questions as we go along, you can use the upvote to kind of prioritize so that when George and I come back to address those questions, we can kind of start from the top on what's the highest voted ranked questions and kind of go down from there. If you ask questions in chat, we may miss them. So try to put them in the Q&A panel if it's a pressing question about Epiphan Cloud and the topic we're going to have today. Again, still a couple more people joining us here, trickling in a little bit. People are a little slower today than usual, but that's okay.
It's almost summertime.
For sure.
Come on.
I am too. I mean, look outside. The weather's not that great, so I'm a little sluggish today too.
Yeah.
But what's our agenda?
Okay. Let's jump into it. So we're going to start off with an overview of Epiphan Cloud. George is going to walk through a live demo and show you everything you can do there, soup to nuts presentation. We'll interrupt that a little bit with some questions halfway through, and then we'll spend more time on your questions at the end. So George and I have all day if you want to hang out and ask questions at the end. If you do put a question in, we will get to it. I promise you that. As long as it's like a normal human question.
No robot questions.
No robots. Yeah, get lost, robots. So let's jump in and start with the overview. So, George, what is Epiphan Cloud?
So Epiphan Cloud is kind of a unique piece of technology and a special tool available to Epiphan customers, particularly those that are using our Pearl hardware encoders. Essentially, the idea is to have a command center for all of your Epiphan things, your Pearls, your Pearl Nanos, your Pearl Minis, your Pearl 2s, whether you own one or whether you own multiple. The idea is to have a cloud-based configuration portal, monitoring portal, You can remotely access your pearls through the cloud. You can help do real-time alerts for production issues and understanding what's going on with your fleet of devices. And you can also set up, if you have a large fleet or even a smaller fleet of Pearl devices, you can use batch actions to save a ton of time when managing all those devices. And we're going to demonstrate some of that when we go into the live demo and walk you through some of those settings. But needless to say, as things are changing, remote production is ramping up. People are managing a diverse fleet of Pearl devices spread across a campus or across a business and globally. Epiphan Cloud helps you centralize the management and monitoring of all of those devices in one place and being able to share that with a team, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. We're hearing from people already who are using it. And it seems to be a lot of people are using it for places like, imagine you have a school and you want to have devices all over this school, and you don't really want to run around and have to manually update all of this hardware or manually go and look at the recordings on it and double check things. So having this one centralized location, it's pretty obvious efficiencies for anybody who's managing a fleet of devices. That could be in a school situation or in a live event situation where you have a bunch of breakout rooms and you have devices in all these different rooms that you need to manage. Of course, you're going to want to be able to do that centrally. So that's the prime use case for cloud.
Exactly.
We have a little example image here of what this could look like. So this is a space with a bunch of different rooms, and you have many different kinds of hardware in there. We're not just talking about, all the same Pearl 2 system. They could be Pearls of any kind, and they could be LiveScrypt devices as well. And you can manage them all from that same location, that same platform, Epiphan Cloud, and it's really easy. George is going to show you how easy in a minute. You're going to want to quit this demo in the middle of it and be like, I'm out of here. I'm just going to go play with it because it's pretty pretty intuitive. But we'll give you the tour nonetheless.
Yeah.
So let's jump in,
Sure.
George.
Yeah, let's jump into it here.
I think I'm going to have to stop sharing, and you're
bring
going to have
up
to take over here.
my share here. And we're just going to take a look at essentially what the dashboard looks like and how we navigate through it. So this is Epiphan Cloud. So some of the things we can do here is get quick insights on what's happening, right? So right now I'm looking at this page that shows all of our devices, right? And you're going to start to notice a few things in here, like there are groups that we have created, and we'll touch on that more in a minute. But I'm looking kind of all devices, and there's filtering, and there's all these different kind of columns for information. And I have some pearls paired here. But the first question is, well, how do I get these pearls into the cloud? Well, that's actually very easy. There's a button in cloud for pairing a device, and it's going to ask for a pairing code, which you'll find on the Pearl. You can find that in the Pearl's web UI under the cloud settings page, or you could even find it on the front touchscreen on Pearl devices. That pairing code, you give it a name. You can even add it to a predefined group if you already have some of those, and it will pair it to the cloud and add it to this list of devices where we can then do some of that basic monitoring. Now, these units have been set up just for this demo, so it's has some intentional mistakes and errors you could see, and that's to highlight some of these functions. But some of the things we can get here is you'll see things like model names, firmware versions, serial numbers, the health status, the uptime, whether it's on or offline, those sorts of things. And of course, between groupings and filterings, we can understand that. I can also add different columns as well. I might care about the transfer queue that particular unit's using for like automatic file uploads, or system load, or the IP address locally of that unit. So I can fine tune some of these columns. The other thing I can do is maybe I care more about some of these columns than others. I can actually reorder them here in terms of maybe which ones are the most important to me, right? Like maybe I want to know its on or offline status more than anything else, and things like that. We can just drag and drop these columns to reorder what it is that we want to know very quickly. And again, you'll see some of these errors, like the health status right here, right? I have this error here saying storage isn't ready. That's a Pearl Nano that doesn't have any storage installed in it, right? So let's say it's a Pearl Nano or Pearl Mini that should have an SD card installed, but someone pulled it out, right? I know right away there's something wrong here just with that super basic monitoring. I can also see here on this other one that one of my inputs doesn't have a signal. So there's simple but also extremely powerful status that we can get just from this kind of dashboard.
Cool. So you're looking at like the bird's eye view of all your devices. What if you want to, can you show us what it's like when you go into one of those devices? I want to see the channels, you want to see the layouts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so if we go into something like this Pearl 2 that I have here, that's going to help us kind of dive a little bit deeper. And when we go deeper, we get, kind of a little bit more information like we were looking at in those columns, but I can look at it just, a little bigger. I can see the temperature, the system load, the uptime, the storage availability on this particular Pearl 2. If there is an automatic file upload queue. Again, similar information. But I can also go a little farther. I can look at the individual channels. Now, this Pearl 2 only has one channel created in it, but if I had multiple, they'd be here. And I can actually even go deeper into that channel and look at what my encoding settings are, what my recording settings are. I can stop recording here. I can actually choose to start and stop a stream. So for example, this is a common YouTube stream profile that lives in cloud. I can assign to this Pearl 2 from the cloud. I created it in cloud and I pushed it to that Pearl 2, and I can now start it. I can create destinations here, which right now is RTMP. We'll be adding some API-based ones in the future. But there's some great ways to quickly manage some of this on a particular encoding channel. But if I want to know more about those inputs, I can look at the inputs page. And here, I only have one input connected on this demo device, but you can see all of the inputs here and their status, the audio inputs, including getting an audio meter so we know it's active. So I can get a lot of information here very quickly in terms of what's going on. And then if I want, I can also, the most extreme way would be to go even deeper. And we'll look at that at just a moment. But there's a bunch of things here. I can also look at LiveScrypt. So if I'm a LiveScrypt user, LiveScrypt and cloud really are hand in hand because they are one. And so for LiveScrypt, it looks a little bit differently because we're not talking about video encoding, but very similar in the sense that I can get some information. I can even see the live transcription that's running. I can get the URLs that I would distribute to people. And again, a bunch of system information, changing the outputs. LiveScripts are unique, so they have a bunch more cool settings in there that you can play with. But that's kind of, what we could do with a lot of the devices. Again, looking at Pearl Nano, very similar idea. Obviously, it only has a single channel, less inputs, those sorts of things. There's a lot we can do looking at these different devices. So that's sort of...
What about this is not everything on a device. So there are things in Pearl that I know we can do that are not here in the cloud. And I know you can do quite a bit of stuff. But if I want to adjust a layout or something like that, how do I do that?
So there we need to dive a little deeper. And to do that, again, it's kind of just layers of the onion, if you will. We have that top layer and we want to get to that
Pearl
nice
onion.
Juicy center. That's where we can use the remote login function. And what this will actually allow me to do is remotely connect to the full administrator interface, in this case on this Pearl Mini, as though I was local to the unit. I've actually, this function creates a secure tunnel from the cloud server to this Pearl directly in order to access this local administrator interface. And now I can do anything as though I was, local to that unit accessing the remote, the admin interface. So I can go in and I can adjust channels. I can play with layouts. I can adjust encoding settings. I can do basically anything I would normally do with a Pearl, but I'm accessing this entirely remotely without the need for a VPN, without the need for remote desktop software. It's a great piece there. If I'm doing productions, I can even go so far as to use Epiphan Cloud, right? If I want to do remote monitoring and switching over something like cloud, I can do that here as well. So this is, for those who love using the live dashboard, this is a great tool, right? For if you have switching and things like that set up, you could do all of that entirely remotely. So that's a great piece.
Cool. So one of the polls here we put out, George, is asking people like how many devices do they have, and not too many people have filled in the polls so far. So if you are watching, have a look at those questions. It's kind of some interesting data points there. But most people are responding that they have 10 or more Pearls. So maybe you could walk through like, what can I do to help manage, a fleet of devices?
Yeah, that's where batch actions come into play, and also grouping. So you can see here at the top, I actually have 2 groups, right? And you could play with these groups in a whole bunch of different ways. So the first one, we created a group called Ottawa Campus and one called Palo Alto Campus. These, represent theoretical campuses, but really represented by Epiphan's offices. And we have different units grouped in there. So for example, if I want to apply an action like, all of the devices that are in the Ottawa campus, I need to start recording, I can select those, right, the group or the units individually, and I can tell them to start recording, and both will start.
And just because you can select the channels within those, like these only have one.
These only have one channel each.
I'm trying to see one channel set up per device, but you could say I want this channel from this device and these 2 channels from this device and these channel, and do your stuff that way. So you can go by channel or by device.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can see on this Pearl Mini that's in the Palo Alto campus, there's 2 different channels. So I could have chosen only one of them or both of them. So you can kind of, the grouping helps. Doing these batch actions really helps. Again, streaming can be a part of that. Doing firmware updates, which we're going to get to in a moment. But there's a bunch of functions in terms of, adding devices to groups, removing devices to groups. And that can help you do batch actions. You don't have to use groups for that, but it does help to be able to, if you have a lot of units, for example, right? If we think back to that diagram slide you had, you might have classrooms in one group and other rooms in another group, or whatever sort of breakdown you might need. So that really helps in terms of looking at that. But of course, monitoring is there as well, to help understand what's happening within those groups. One of the things that is probably the most helpful, and I'm actually going to do it on all of my units, is, except for the LiveScrypt because it doesn't need it, but all of my Pearls, is actually doing a firmware update. So I'm going to trigger this. It's going to take a little while, but we intentionally had all of those units on an older firmware so that I can demonstrate this. You'll see that I have one of each Pearl model here, a Nano, a Pearl 2, and a Pearl Mini. I can select them all and tell them to do a firmware update. I don't have to go in and say, okay, Nanos do this one, Minis do this one. That batch action can make it very, very easy to just trigger all of them to do an update to whatever the most recent is. So these units are going to download that update themselves and reboot. So that'll take a little bit here, and we'll have to talk about something else temporarily. So hopefully maybe there's some questions, and then once they've rebooted, we can take a look at some of the new stuff we've actually just recently added in the past few days.
Cool. So yeah, if you're watching on Crowdcast, be sure to put any questions you have in the little ask a question field, and we'll get to them either now, if you're quick, or we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So there are a couple of questions in here already, George. So why don't I queue them up for you,
Sure.
and you can knock them out of the park. The first one, recording, scheduling, question mark. That's from Matt Fisher. So I guess Matt's wondering if there's you can schedule recordings using cloud?
No, unfortunately, it can't. Currently, with Pearls, if you want to schedule recordings, that would be using an integration into a CMS system. And currently, today, that's either Kaltura or Panopto, where you can register a Pearl as a resource for those CMSs, and they can be scheduled by the CMS, and that's all automated from that side. So you can do it using a CMS, but it's not something that currently lives natively in cloud or on the Pearl itself. Although, it's a good idea. It could be something that could be done in cloud in the future, but currently it's not there.
Okay, I'm going to skip the next question because I already answered it with a comment. But after that, we have Nadia asking, on the Pearl Mini, can you disable the ability to pause a recording from the touchscreen, like the red button, and leave the ability to change the layout active?
That's a good question. I need to actually refresh my own memory on what the touchscreen configuration page looks like. There are certain functions that you can filter on what's allowed and not allowed on the front touchscreen of a Pearl. Some of it is the ability to stop recording, stop streaming, and the red button is a start record button. I think it might be paired with that, but we can take a look at that afterwards.
Sure. I put the question out to the product manager for our Pearl
I'm
systems,
pretty sure that
so,
one is paired. The assumption is if someone has the ability to do switching on the front touchscreen, they would also have the ability to do the start-stop functions. I believe those are paired together in terms of turning on and off that functionality. But it looks like our units have rebooted here. So, yeah, which is good timing for that. So the next thing I want to focus on, and I'm going to zoom out here a little bit because I noticed as I added those columns, it cut things off a bit. So hopefully everyone can still see this okay. But one of the most recent things we just added was presets. So those who are familiar with using Pearls more locally will know that in the maintenance menu of a Pearl, you can create configuration presets. Those presets are essentially system profiles, right? You can choose which subsystems of Pearl you want to include in that preset. You can create a whole bunch of different ones to move between, maybe event A versus event B have totally different configurations. Now you can do that through cloud. So if I look at this Pearl 2, for example, now that it's fully updated to the most recent version, I have a new tab here for presets. I can go into the preset here, and it's going to show me all of the presets that are currently exist on that Pearl 2, which I could apply to change which one I want, or I could upload this one to cloud, which means it now exists as an entity within cloud for the team I've created to use, which means I can apply it through cloud to another Pearl 2. I can also create a new configuration preset here, where just like I do locally on a Pearl, I can choose, which pieces of it I want to include or not, and I can create that new preset. Again, it creates it locally on that Pearl, which I could then go back and maybe upload, to the cloud here and add it to my team library. Now, because you cannot move presets between Pearl models, since their feature sets are quite different, any of the ones I create and add into the team in the cloud, I could only apply to another device of a similar type. It won't even show it to you. So when I go over this Mini, for example, it doesn't show any of those ones I added. If I already have presets I've created and maybe I've downloaded from a Pearl and I just have them on my computer, I can actually upload them here as well. Like I could, click the add preset, it'll open up my file browser. It's in my downloads folder or something like that, and I could upload it to the cloud. So it's very easy to do this, so that we can, again, it gives us that ability to manage these different pieces and be able to better control a fleet of devices. So this, honestly, this is going to be an incredibly powerful tool for many Perl users. and I think is going to make using configuration presets, which is already an extremely powerful part of Pearls that not a lot of people know about, to be honest. But those that know, they know, and it's an amazing tool for them to be able to change the role of that device very quickly.
Totally. Yeah, we would. I don't think Cameron, our producer, would be with us any longer if we didn't have configuration presets.
That's true.
It's a lot of work resetting for all these webinars and live streams and everything. So
the other thing I want to look at is alerts, right? Because we're talking about management.
Okay,
right?
cool.
Alerts are important. So in this case, alerts can be all kinds of different things. And you can see there's some previous alerts here about storage, right? But alerts, we can choose, what alerts we want to know about, which devices, which types of alerts might we need to trigger. So storage limits or signal inputs or device health or any of these things, we can create these alerts so that if something triggers on one of them, for example, our Nano runs out of storage and I want to know about that. I can turn that alert on, or it goes offline. Then I'm going to get an email alert that this happened. That could be a pretty important part, right? And that alerts page, you can see I just created that, so that alert already popped up. It's even going to have suggested actions based on what the trigger was, right? So in this case, it was storage. So it says, hey, maybe the SD card's not there. But there's going to be these kind of helpful pieces so that you can kind of get that information, understand what's going on, and be able to, address those issues and those concerns as they come up, which is great. It's a super helpful tool to be able to understand the health of the devices and again, monitoring those different pieces.
Okay. Did you show us the high frame rate, George?
I didn't yet, actually. That's a pretty good one. So that's a fun one. I actually like that one. So again, status is everything. Understanding what's going on is important. So we know we can set alerts to know if someone unplugs an input, for example, but what if we want to know a little bit more in terms of just live monitoring, right? So that's where we can drill down into something like our channel here on our Pearl Mini. I can actually go from this frame rate, which is just a very slowly refreshing snapshot. So it tells me something's there, which is great. My audio meter shows me there's some audio there. But if I want to get a more detailed stream of what's happening there, I can click over to a full frame rate mode, and it takes a moment to buffer it. But now I'm getting an actual frame rate stream smooth of what's happening. I can even hear the audio in my headset. I'm going to mute it because it's distracting while I'm trying to talk. But you can see and hear live what's happening in this encoding channel when you click over to that full frame rate view. So that can be super helpful. Again, monitoring, understanding what's going on without necessarily having to drill all the way down into the administrator interface for confidence monitoring. So this is a fantastic tool as well. And then you can always just flip it back off and it'll kind of go back to that snapshot.
Yeah, because it is a bandwidth.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's always going to occupy a little bit more bandwidth for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk maybe about collaboration. So most productions, maybe not today, but typically you'd have a few people involved in a production, especially when you have a whole lot of devices running like that. So how does the team aspect of all of this work?
Yeah, so the account I'm logged into is a test account, but I actually have a number of different teams that this account is the member of. So this account can even go over to this Epiphan Studio account is actually largely used by our support team for doing demos and helping customers troubleshoot problems. So when I jump over to that team, you can see I have a total different range of devices there, which is cool. But within each team, I can have different members. So within this Epiphan University fake one, you can see that it is Cameron and my account that are members of this. So I can add new members if I wanted to, and I can give them different roles, and I can send them invitations to their email so that they can join what's going on here.
And And there's no pricing. Like, it doesn't matter how many members you want.
Exactly.
You can have as many members you want. It doesn't impact your pricing. It's just based
Exactly.
on
So,
a fixed price.
you know, a team that has no paired devices, you can add that. You can add new team members. This one I don't think has anyone but me as an example. And so this is a great way to assign roles for the level of access people might need, because maybe they just need to look at things and operate things, but not add or remove or whatever. So there you can have the admin versus operator roles selections for who you're inviting, and you can have multiple teams, right? So again, you might have one that's a team for live production, a team that's for lecture capture, and those sorts of things. And not only are devices assigned differently, but staff can be assigned differently. But of course, people can be members of multiple teams, as you can see. So that can really help be a bit more hands-on in terms of who has access to what.
Nice. Okay, so and nothing left to demo here,
No,
George,
I mean,
right?
that's kind of the high-level stuff, yeah.
Okay, let's before we get into questions, we'll talk a little bit about pricing and a few other little bits. If you have any questions, throw them into the Crowdcast platform, and we'll get to those. Let me share my screen,
Sure.
George.
I was just looking at LiveScrypt again because it's so cool. I'm going to jump away from that, though. I'll let you share again.
Okay, so when it comes to pricing, you have options. First off, you have the free plan, and this is not a lightweight plan. You can load all your devices in a free plan. You can do device management. You can set up and run your streams from there as well. You can monitor all your channels and inputs. It's pretty powerful for those of you who have a few devices. Even there's customers on here with the free plan
Hundreds
who have
of devices.
50 devices.
Yeah, it's
because they just need the basics. So it's a very useful free plan. It's not garbage like a lot of free plans
most
are.
people honestly
And then-
would be totally fine with the free plan.
That's very true. And then when you want to get some of the more specific features, like if you want to do the configuration preset management, or you want to be able to do, I think, firmware updates from a batch point of view, you want those efficiencies, that's where you end up looking at the pro plans. There's a nice table on our website at epiphan.com/cloud, which lays out pretty clearly the differences between the plans. So you can go there and have a look. And all the plans start off with a 30-day free trial, and all the pricing is listed there too for annual pricing and monthly pricing. So have a look there if you're interested, and try it out, do one of the trials and see what you think. So one of the customers we'd like to talk about when it comes to Epiphan Cloud is the University of Rhode Island. So they have, I forget how many pearls. It's many, 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 many pearls throughout all of their lecture halls and different kinds of rooms within their campus. And they have found Epiphan Cloud to be really indispensable for be able to manage it from a central location when their campus is like spread out over this huge plot of land. So just a nice little use case there.
Yeah, we have a case study with them up on the website if you want to learn more about how they're using the pearls. But yeah, again, it's for them, it's just being able to quickly understand what's going on, whether things are on or offline, is like game changing without having to run around. And that can be a big deal, especially in these days where some of your IT staff might not even be on campus, right? They might be in a work from home environment. And so cloud really opens the door to that sort of remote management.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a requirement for a lot of these big institutions. Okay, let's jump into questions.
Yeah.
So this could be pretty short because there's not too many in there so far.
No. And I did want to just address one thing kind of, Nadia clarified, they're using a Pearl Mini with Panopto, and when they press stop on the touchscreen, it pauses, which didn't happen. Yeah, that's sort of a different thing, because there we're talking about how it interacts with Panopto as well. We're constantly looking at and working with Panopto to improve and enhance the way that Pearl interacts with Panopto. So, that's great feedback. We appreciate that. And that's something we can definitely kind of look at going forward as we, Panopto continues to evolve as a platform, and how Pearls interact with it continues to evolve. So those are things we do appreciate hearing. But yeah, at the moment, it does behave that way. That's sort of a function of the Panopto API, essentially.
Yeah. But I have seen some UI around here that makes it look like we might be trying to address, to give a little bit more control over how you can stop or pause events, specifically around Panopto. So keep an eye out here. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, well, there's one question here that we didn't address yet. And it's a pretty good one, actually. And I don't know that I have a very precise answer yet. How much system resources does the cloud connection use? From the logs on Pearl, I can see it's a lot of traffic. There is frequent pings in order to keep all of that status update happening, but the actual size of data is very small until you're either doing that full frame rate stream preview or you're drilling down into the administrator interface and using Epiphan Live Dashboard, that kind of thing. The kind of background data that's happening is pretty minimal overall. I don't have an exact number for you, but it's not a ton of information, but it does have to be frequent in order for it to be accurate. But it's not not sending gigs and gigs and data a day. It's nothing like that. But it is pretty frequent. So in the logs, it looks like there's a ton there. But actual bandwidth requirement is pretty low.
Okay. So that is a wrap for today. Thanks to everybody who watched. Thanks, George, for making this look so easy.
It is. It really is. And you can get started for free. Go create an account if you own a Pearl and just play around with it, right? It's something you can easily do anytime.
Yeah. For sure. And you can contact George.
Or George.
If you email, or me, info@epiphan.com. One way or another, those emails will find their way to us or anybody else on the support team or the product management team. So don't feel free to reach out. And if you have ideas about it, what you want to see in cloud, we would love to see too.
Yeah, we got a lot more in store, a lot of plans, a lot of ideas. This is a platform that's still in the early days, and we have a lot of things we want to do and see it grow. So always appreciate people's feedback, but go play with it first and see how it can help you. And then if you have any information or feedback, we'd love to hear it, and we can see what we might be able to do to help. But yeah, nice and easy. So this preset thing, so good. It's so good.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks so much.